All right, so this is going to be a big video where the aromantic shipper, will be judging all of reviewing all 8 of the Potter movies, giving my thoughts about them. So some background. I was never really a big fan of Harry Potter when I was a kid. Like, I don't know, something about it never really appealed to me, like in the same way that, for example, something like Star Wars did, which I like watched religiously when I was a kid. I ended up in 2022. I ended up rewatching all the movies because I had seen them before. I just wasn't super into them. But I ended up rewatching all of the Harry Potter movies in 2022 because they were available on HBO Max. I thought I'd revisit them and stuff. And just as a disclaimer, I'm not going to be going into any of the controversies surrounding J.K. Rowling, but I just will put out there, though trans rights are human rights, obviously. I'm going to be trying to separate the art from the artist in this video. So yeah, I'm basically going to be going through all the Harry Potter movies and saying my thoughts on them, what I think, and yeah, that's going to be this video. So let's just, and by the way, spoilers for the movies, I'm not going to be holding back. So yeah, let's just get into it and get to what I thought about all the Harry Potter movies after all this time. So yeah, let's do it. All right, so the first Harry Potter movie, The Sorcerer's Stone. Honestly, I don't really think this movie is that great. I mean, like, it's a relatively standard kids movie, and there's not really much to it. I feel like, it's just like, I don't know, this movie is just really boring to me. I was kind of really not interested throughout a lot of it. It just feels very safe, very, like, by the books, and because, I mean, like, it is an introduction sort of to the world of Harry Potter, and, sort of introducing everything in it, and the characters, and I don't know, it just feels like there's not really that much that is very grabbing about this first movie. It just, like, is so painfully uninteresting a lot of the time. I mean, like, it definitely feels like wish fulfillment fantasy, which is, like, just, like, the vibe I got throughout literally all of it, which is where, a good bit of it is just cool magic stuff with not much substance, and it's very focused on, like, cool, fun ideas rather than entertainment that adults might enjoy. I mean, like, there's a lot of things that bother me about this movie. Like, for example, the Dursley family, who is introduced in this movie, of course, Harry Potter's surrogate family. Like, they're just so cartoonishly mean that I can't really take them seriously. And I don't really even understand what the reasoning is for, like, why don't they want Harry to leave for Hogwarts? Like, they fucking hate Harry and want him out of their lives. So why are they not super enthusiastic for him going away and never seeing them for, like, 9 months of a year in their lives? I mean, it just doesn't really make much sense to me. Furthermore, why did the Magic Wizards never check on Harry to see if he was, like, being treated okay and just leave him with his awful family? And why did Voldemort's followers never just show up at the Dursleys and kill Harry immediately, seeing as how he wasn't kept very secret and his name wasn't changed? It doesn't make much sense, but whatever. I mean, also, another thing that bothers me about this movie is, like, and I guess the Harry Potter series in general, it's like, it's a small thing. I guess this is kind of a nitpick and sort of just a me thing, but why would Voldemort be he who must not be named? Like, I feel like if, it was actually real life and there was this, like, super bad dude who did all these evil things, then rather than, like, no one ever mentioning his name, people would be all the time mentioning him and saying, oh, you're as bad as this guy, you're as bad as, like, because how in real life, like, Hitler, like, Adolf Hitler is not he who must not be named. Like, people who bring him up in conversations all the time when they want to, like, say someone is, like, horrible and bad. Like, literally, my aunt, the crazy fundamentalist religion one, which you wouldn't know about unless you watched my other channel. But, she was basically talking to me, a year ago or so about, like, how Governor Wolf of PA is, like, he's a Hitler. And, like, people, like, invoke the name of Hitler all the time to talk shit about other people. So it just doesn't really make sense to me why, Voldemort would be he who must not be named. It's just, like, it doesn't make much sense. But I guess this is a nitpick, but it doesn't make much sense to me. So another thing about this movie is that the effects are somewhat dated in this film. You can definitely tell the film's age and, some of the limitations on the budget they had. So, there's definitely a lot of times where you can tell it's not great. Also, another thing that bothers me about these movies is, like, the four houses are kind of dumb. can we all agree about that? Like, the four houses are kind of stupid. Like, why would you sort children into, like, different personality types? And furthermore, like, some of these housing choices just don't really make much sense. Like, for example, why was Hermione put in Gryffindor? Why was she not put in why was Hermione not put in Ravenclaw? Like, she's literally the archetypal Ravenclaw character. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any fucking sense. But, you know, all the important characters have to be in all the important characters, you know, they have to be in Gryffindor, so I guess she has to be in Gryffindor, and like it doesn't make sense, but whatever. And Quidditch, which is introduced in this movie, is also pretty dumb. You know, everyone's made fun of it, but like the rule about how the snitch, when it's caught, it basically ends the game by giving a bajillion fucking points to the team who catches it. And it's like, you know, because here's the thing, I feel like it would be different, and there's a very simple change you could make to the Quidditch game to make the snitch thing actually make sense, which is that rather than catching the snitch and that means your team wins, catching the snitch simply ends the game. So basically what happens is the seeker wants to catch the snitch while their team is winning, and he wants to keep the other seeker from catching the snitch when their team is losing, because catching the snitch just makes the game end. So whichever team has the most points would, they would be victorious in the end. And I feel like that's just, it's such a simple way to make the snitch actually make sense, but they don't do it. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense. Quidditch is fucking stupid. I'm just gonna say it. Like, everyone's already said it, but I'm saying it, which means it's special coming from me. But anyway, but yeah, hey, me, I actually gave a suggestion for how to improve it. So, are other people doing that? I've never seen anyone, but anyway. So anyway, I'm going to some other stuff about this movie. Like, the twist that Quirrell is the villain is so fucking obvious. Like, he's always, like, they try to play it off as, Snape is, you know, this person who seems really bad and up to some shady shit. So that means it's obviously not him. And, when you look at that, Quirrell is, like, around Snape every single time it looks like Snape is doing something suspicious. So, I wonder who it could be. And it's just, like, it's so obvious. Like, if you put, like, a modicum of actual thought into it and, like, what's going on. And it's just, like, I also think that, in regards to the characters, like, Ron and Hermione are mostly fine in this movie. I feel like their personalities are, you know, the main thing that bothers me about this movie is that the main character, Harry Potter, is, like, really boring in a lot of ways. Like, he doesn't usually have, like, these, you know, important or, like, it doesn't really give a lot of focus to his, like, perspective on things and his thoughts on things in this movie. And, like, I don't know, I just find him really boring in this movie. He's, like, such a bland protagonist. In the first movie, anyway. He gets some stuff down the line. But, I also think that it bothered me that, like, Harry didn't actually do anything to defeat the bad guy when, like, again, he just, like, is touched by Professor Quirrell. Like, no, that sounds bad, but, like, Professor Quirrell makes physical contact with him, and then he just falls apart. And it's just like, Harry Potter didn't really do anything to defeat the bad guy. And I get it that, like, he's obviously a kid. He's very inexperienced, so he shouldn't be able to, like, defeat this powerful wizard. But, like, I don't know, he should have done something. I mean, it just feels like he doesn't really have almost any agency in this book, and he's just not very interesting. And has anyone ever noticed this, that, like, Harry Potter casts a total of 0 spells in this whole movie? He literally never casts one. This is a fucking wizard movie about going to wizard school and learning wizard shit. He doesn't even cast any spells. It's kind of ridiculous. But anyway, so overall, in this movie, The Philosopher's Stone, like, there's really nothing about the movie that I would say is particularly bad, but it's just incredibly uninteresting to movie. Like, I have no desire whatsoever to go back and watch the first movie in the Harry Potter saga. It's just, like, very boring and bland. So that's basically what I thought about The Philosopher's Stone. Yeah, those are my thoughts. All right, so now we're moving on to talking about the second movie, Chamber of Secrets. And this film, in my opinion, is much better than the first film. I think it did a lot of aspects significantly better and made a lot of improvements over the, pretty much everything in the first film. So one of the things that I thought was much better in the Chamber of Secrets is that the mystery in this movie is much better built up and much harder to guess, because there are a lot of things to keep track of. Like, there's all these different elements that are sort of sus in the movie that are, I just said sus unironically. God, I am so cringe. I just said cringe unironically. God, I am someone. I don't know what to say. This is unscripted. I mean, I have notes, but it's, what am I doing? Anyway, anyway, like I was saying before, there's all these different things to keep track of in this movie where that are sort of suspicious. Where there's Dobby the house elf, there's like the Malfoys, there's Hagrid's giant spider, there's Harry's Parseltongue, and there's Tom Riddle, and there's all these things that like you're not exactly sure how they connect to the main mystery of like the people who are getting petrified, but they probably connect in some way to it, and it's just like really interesting trying to figure out because it's much harder to figure out, and like because there is so many of these moving parts that don't necessarily seem like they all relate to each other, but all sort of do in the end. So basically, I definitely did like that aspect of it. I will say though, that one of the things in this movie that is introduced in it that I feel like there's no point whatsoever in it being there is, what was the point of Gilderoy Lockhart? I mean, like, he literally amounts to absolutely nothing in the end, and just could have been cut out of the movie. I don't understand why he was there. Like, he's there to provide this twist of that, oh, he was actually like a fake who was taking credit for all these wizards' accomplishments by wiping their memories, and like okay, but what was the point of discovering that? It didn't lead to anything. It didn't like amount to anything. So what was the, he didn't have any relation to Voldemort or anything. What was the point of Gilderoy Lockhart? I don't understand why he's in this movie. I don't understand why he was introduced ever. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's not even that entertaining. I mean, I don't know. In regards to the climax of this movie, I thought it was much better than in the than in the first movie, the Philosopher's Stone, or I guess the Sorcerer's Stone, depending on if you're in America, which I am in America. I am in the United States of America, and but I like to call it Philosopher's Stone because that sounds cooler. But anyway, so yeah, basically, the climax is much better in this movie with Henry, not Henry. Fuck, what is wrong with me in this? What is wrong with me in this video recording? Probably because I'm up at like 2:00 at night recording this. Yeah, but anyway, Harry basically faces against the basilisk, and it's a much better climax where he actually has to like put in the work and try to defeat it, even though he does get some assistance. And I would say though it's killed somewhat easily, like for this immortal, incredibly like dangerous giant fucking snake thing that is like this. Oh my gosh, it's such a feared creature, and like it is killed kind of easily in the end. And I must emphasize that Harry has not casted one single fucking spell in this movie. Just like in the last one, like, it's a story about fucking wizards. Like, why has he not casted a single spell so far? It doesn't make any sense. What the fuck? Oh my gosh. It doesn't make any sense. And like, go actually and watch the first two movies. Harry does not cast a single spell. Like, I'm serious. And also, it was just kind of a Deus Ex Machina with Dumbledore's Phoenix coming out of nowhere to give Harry the Sword of Gryffindor. Like, yeah, it sort of come out of nowhere. But again, I do like that the climax was better, and like it did have Harry actually trying to fight on his own merits against this basilisk creature and trying to save Ginny Weasley. And the way Harry at the end of the movie, the way Harry does actually free Dobby in the end, I think it was a pretty clever move on Harry's part, and does show Harry sort of becoming a more interesting and more engaging protagonist than he was in the first movie, where he basically had almost no agency, whereas actually in this movie trying to be more active and like do these stuff, and he actually has this pretty clever plan to free Dobby from his master Lucius in the end. And that was a clever scene. It shows Harry's intelligence and his wit. But here's what confuses me about it. Like, what I still question about this is, why are the house elves enslaved in the first place if they are so powerful? I mean, literally, Dobby snaps his fingers and blows Lucius Malfoy across the room. Like, the house elves in Harry Potter are like really OP. So why are they slaves? I mean, like, why is Dobby why is Dobby forced to obey his master unless his master like presents him with an article of clothing? Like, is there some kind of magical contract like that the wizards trick the house elves into going into, and if they like break it, then they'll die? Like, if that's the case, it's never specified, so it's just like it's kind of ridiculous and confusing, the whole house elf slavery situation. So I don't know. I mean, It's just confusing to me. Overall, I will say I do like this movie a lot better than the first one. When I was watching it, I did actually feel myself enjoying the movie and liking it a lot more. And there are some, it definitely does feel like it's getting more into the darker aspect of the series, and there are definitely a lot more scenes where there's, tension, and it feels like, okay, this is actually getting kind of a real serious situation. So I like that aspect of it better, and so I did like Chamber of Secrets much better than the first movie. So that's basically what I thought about it. So yeah, that's basically what I thought about Chamber of Secrets. So now we get into talking about The Prisoner of Azkaban, the third film in the franchise, which by many is considered to be one of the best, if not the best, movie in the Harry Potter franchise. And honestly, like, I feel like this movie is a bit overrated in my opinion. Like, talking about the first scene in the movie, like with, what basically happens with, Harry is back with the Dursleys again, which, and basically what happens is he, like, blows up the woman Marge. He blows her up like a balloon. And that, can we agree that that scene was kind of disturbing? I mean, like he literally blows her up and has her like flying over all over town, and she could like pretty easily die in that situation. And like I've just noticed that with the Harry Potter franchise, like it has somewhat of a vengeful streak. Like for example, like I'm talking about, like where it's treated as a joke, where jerk characters, get something absolutely horrifying happen to them. Like Marge flies off into space, and Harry says, she got what she deserved. Like I don't know, does like, even if she is like a horrible woman who's saying all these horrible things, does she deserve to be blown up by a balloon and flung over town to possibly die? Like, come on. And like, it's just treated as a joke, and it's just like, that kind of thing bothers me, because it's just like, it's something that happens in the Harry Potter series several times, where it's just like treated as this comeuppance, where like, horrifying violence happens to these characters who are just acting like jerks, but not actually like trying to do anything like actual physical harm to, I don't know. It just bothers me. I did not really like that scene at all. So in regards to some actually good things about this movie, the cinematography in Prisoner of Azkaban is really great. Like, the director absolutely did a brilliant job with this movie. I really love how he frames things, and he also has with it having a lot of these really good gothic visuals, and a lot of these also really good long takes as well, which like you don't notice you don't notice without it like being pointed out to you necessarily, but you don't take notice of it. You don't take notice of it, but your brain did. Like that kind of stuff. And where, so another thing that this movie really does a good job with is, again, what I was sort of mentioning before, which is the horror aspect, where Harry Potter can definitely the franchise can definitely excel at many points in the horror aspect, and giving legitimately frightening and scary imagery and scenarios. And it's really excellent in this movie with the Dementors, which are just like these terrifying designs, and like these terrifying creatures that suck the freaking life out of you and stuff. And there are some fantastic scenes in this movie where it does really feel like where Harry is coming into his own and being a more active character in this movie. Like, he's learning new spells. Finally, he's actually like doing magic in this movie, which he did not do in the first two. And he's learning spells, and that scene where he's trying to become more powerful. He's that scene where he was confronting Sirius Black, trying to actually get to the bottom of what happened, and like him disarming and throwing back Snape because he really wanted to know what happened with his parents, and if Black betrayed him. And it really shows that Harry is actually becoming a more interesting protagonist, like taking these steps to actually sort of take control of the narrative with again, like, because that was one of the things that bothered me in the first movie, where he just like he was almost not active in any way and was sort of be carried along by the narrative. But in this movie, he's like definitely coming more into his own and trying to like do things for himself, and like taking these steps to really discover the truth and try to find some justice for his parents' murders. And like, so yeah, it's really cool, and I really like Harry in this movie. He's definitely becoming a much more interesting protagonist. And like it's also kind of cool how this movie decides to do something different with, obviously Voldemort not really being involved, and the villain is actually turning out not to be the villain, which is a pretty cool twist. Sirius Black is also pretty cool. I like his character with what little we saw of him, and Lupin was also a cool character too, with him being introduced. I have to say though, like, I cannot be the only one who thought that Sirius and Lupin were pretty freaking gay, right? Like, I mean, come on, look at their interactions in this movie, and look at like the way the way the actors play their characters with their relationship to each other, and how Lupin says at the end of the movie how parents would pull their children from Hogwarts if they knew they were being taught by people like him. Yeah, it's real subtle. I mean, like, come on, like the Sirius and Lupin are like totally gay coded, like confirmed. I mean, come on, people, let's get real. But yeah, like if only it was actually confirmed on screen, but of course it wouldn't be. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, I will say though that the climax of this movie is a little weird to me and doesn't make a ton of sense. I mean, like, so basically what happens is, Harry and Hermione and Ron, they basically all confront Sirius Black and like try to get him to spill the beans about what really happened. But then you still have like 40 more minutes of the movie left to go. So you have this like second climax where Lupin transforms into a werewolf because coincidentally it's the full moon, and coincidentally he didn't take his potion to like nullify the effects of the werewolf transformation. So then, the characters have to go back in time and save Sirius from getting save Sirius from getting killed, because time travel is a thing that exists in this world and is just handed to 13-year-old girls like it's inconsequential to do their fucking homework and take more classes. And then the last 30 minutes of this movie is just a time travel sequence, and it feels very out of place. And like it's well directed, and it has some pretty cool sound effects, like where you could see hear like the subtle effect of the clock ticking in the background. But like, I don't know, it just feels so out of place, and it just like doesn't make sense, because like for whatever reason the characters never think to use the time turners again, like, and the movie just I don't understand it. Like, you have fucking time travel that like would seem to be a very useful thing to use when bad things start to happen in the future, and like it's just used in this movie and then it's never used again. It's never even brought up again, and like it doesn't make sense. I don't get it. This is like, why would you do this? Why would you introduce this concept and then not ever like use it again, and just not even address it? It doesn't make any fucking sense. Oh my gosh, it's just very frustrating. And like, and then the movie ends on like a freeze frame of Harry's face zoomed in, rushing towards the screen, and it's like, it's just it's kind of ridiculous and kind of stupid. But like, I don't know, anyway, so in regards to the Prisoner of Azkaban, like, my overall thoughts on it is that I think this movie is good. Like, it's the best movie so far, beating out the first movie and the second movie. But like, I really don't think it's as good as everybody gives it credit for. I think there are some definite issues with it, and like some stuff that doesn't really make sense. But it is good, but it's not great, I would say. And that's basically what I thought of the Prisoner of Azkaban. So yeah. Anyway, that's my thoughts. All right, now we're moving on to talking about the fourth movie in the series, which is The Goblet of Fire. So when I first watched the Harry Potter movies as a kid, this was The Goblet of Fire was actually my favorite one. Now, not so much, but let's talk about the good parts first. So one thing that I really appreciate about this movie, The Goblet of Fire, is that it finally just fucking cuts the Dursleys out and just starts with Harry at staying at the Weasleys, which, finally, because I can't stand the Dursleys. It's not even like they're entertaining jerks or like interesting jerks. It's just like they're just so unpleasant to see on screen. It's just like, I really don't like them. But yeah, so another thing I really like about this movie is that it ups the stakes really quickly and very early on with like a bunch of like Klansmen. I mean, Death Eaters, but like, yeah, they look like Klansmen, but like coming in and like attacking the festivities at the Quidditch Cup or whatever. And so yeah, it really like makes these stakes very real and very apparent very early on. And I really like that, and I really like how it doesn't like waste time with the Dursleys again. Just sort of gets into the story, and with I keep saying Harry with his friends and stuff. So yeah, also in this movie, Voldemort's Lord Voldemort is finally revived. Where he finally becomes this real villain and not like this ghost thing that is sort of hiding in the shadows. And it's a fantastic scene that is extremely terrifying. And Voldemort really seems like a incredibly scary villain in his introduction scene. Where he's officially brought back in this movie. And it just really feels like, in this movie, it just really feels like, things are getting real. While, before, in the last three movies, yes, there were, like, these dark moments, and yes, there were, these tension-filled moments where the characters, it seemed like they could die, but in this movie, it really feels like, the story is actually getting going. Where, I mean, like, let's be honest, in terms of actual plot development, like, not a ton really happened in the last three movies. But in this one, it really does seem like things are actually moving along and, developing. And, another thing I really like about this movie is, Alistair Moody, who's introduced in it, and he's just, really cool and, really great. I mean, he's an incredibly entertaining character, and he has a bunch of cool character moments, with him, teaching everybody about dark magic and stuff. And I feel like the reveal, because obviously at the end of the movie, it is revealed that Alistair Moody, or Mad-Eye Moody, isn't actually Alistair Moody, and it's revealed that Barty Crouch Jr. is basically disguised himself as Alistair with the Apologies potion. And I feel like the twist is a bit of a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, it's a really great twist, and it makes sense considering a lot of the sort of scenes that were foreshadowing that throughout the movie, and seeing some of these suspicious things that he was up to that you don't necessarily notice on first watch, but you can definitely go back and say, oh yeah, this actually makes a lot of sense in terms of what the movie was foreshadowing to, and all these little sus moments. And yes, I will say it unironically. But yeah, anyway, but it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because, that means that the Alistair Moody, who we've been seeing throughout this entire movie, who is, this really cool and really interesting character, that wasn't actually him. So, basically, our first introduction to Alistair Moody in these movies is him, being trapped in this cage by this other character who basically has no importance in the story, because, Barty Crouch Jr. literally never appears again in the story. He never appears again. He just gets sent to Azkaban, and then he's never relevant again. It's just what? Why? I just don't understand. If they were going to do that twist, they should have made Barty Crouch Jr. a more actually important figure. And again, it just feels like even though it is a good twist, it sort of makes Alistair Moody kind of much less cool and interesting, because we're not actually getting a formal introduction to him. We're getting a formal introduction to someone playing him, basically. So it's just I don't know, it just feels a little bit lame to me. But I don't know, that's an issue I have with the twist, even though it is a good twist. But yeah, anyway, so also all of the challenges that Harry has to go through in the Triwizard Tournament are pretty cool and creative. And again, there is this genuine sense of tension where, again, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Harry could die in these challenges, because they're incredibly deadly, and it's really cool seeing him having to deal with that fact and kind of go through them with this incredible sense of danger throughout the whole thing. So there's a lot to like about this movie, and it is good in a lot of aspects. But one of my biggest issues with this movie is Ron. So I don't understand Ron's character in the first third or the first half of this movie, where basically what happens is he gets mad at Harry for being able to enter the Triwizard Tournament, and he's just mad at him and constantly gives him shit for it. And I've never been able to understand why. Years after first watching this movie, I do not understand why. I don't understand it. Why is Ron mad at Harry for doing this? I mean, it just doesn't really make any sense. First of all, again, Harry continually my stomach is growling, and I just ate. What the hell? Oh, this recording is a mess. Anyway, but yeah, like I was saying before, so Ron just gets incredibly mad at Harry for doing this, despite the fact that, first of all, Harry continually keeps saying that he did not try to do it, and he did not like try to enter the Triwizard Tournament intentionally. And and it feels like Ron should maybe believe him because they're like best friends and should trust each other. But even apart from that, why would Ron get like so incredibly mad at Harry even if he actually did do that and tried to get into the tournament? Because that's literally just what his brothers tried to do, where they were trying to like skirt the rules. And I just don't understand why would Ron be so mad at Harry? It doesn't make any sense. It's just not consistent with his character, and like doesn't make any sense from a logical perspective. I don't get it. It's such a forced drama in this movie, and I just can't stand like any time it's actually brought up. Oh my gosh, it's just such a contrived like conflict between these two characters, and just really annoys me. And like I don't know. And in the end, it amounts to nothing because they just make up like halfway through the movie, and it's just like it doesn't amount to anything. I don't understand it. What was the point of it? It's so dumb. But another thing that I've never really liked about this movie, which again I never really liked it from my first time watching it, is the romance subplot. I mean, like maybe it's because I'm aromantic, and like I can't relate to it. Like I've never been in a situation like this where people are like obsessing over crushes and who to bring to like a dance or something. I've never been able to relate to that. I am aromantic. Like I don't find awkward teenage love triangles angst interesting to watch. Like as a shipper, I am primarily interested in watching wholesome together couples with good chemistry, and like this movie had none of that. It just had awkward teen love triangle angst, and I just didn't like it. I mean, and to me, a lot of the romantic stuff. So here's the main issue with the romance in this movie. Like that just bothers me so much. Like the romantic subplot in this movie just felt like such a waste of time, especially when like none of the pairings actually introduced amount to anything in the end. Like Harry and Cho, like they're not endgame. Cho like disappears from existence by the time of the sixth movie. And sorry, clear my throat. Like Neville and Ginny, they were like a couple shown in this movie, and like they never amount to anything. That's never brought up again. Like Hermione and Crumb, like never brought up again. Crumb never comes back. Like it's just like I don't. And it also is just weird to me because isn't like Crumb like 18 years old and Hermione is like 14? It's just like it's very weird and uncomfortable to see them actually like together at a dance and like sort of dating ish. It's just it's very iffy for me. And like, but my main problem with it is like that like again, the movie is not actually taking time to develop any of these relationships that are going to be endgame, like Ginny and Harry, Ron and Hermione, like or Neville and Luna that we see later. Like it's just like I don't know, it's wasting time on these romantic subplots that don't go anywhere, and it's just like I don't understand it. It just feels so pointless to me, and it just really bothers me. I do not like any of pretty much anything having to do with the romantic subplots in this movie. So like overall, I like this film. There are a lot of good aspects of it, but I just feel like I don't know. There are just aspects of it, like I said before, like the conflict with Ron and the romantic subplots that really drag it down for me, and I feel like introduce unnecessary drama and stuff. And like also another thing that bothers me about the Goblet of Fire is that the ending is weirdly optimistic. Like Ron is like cracking jokes at the end of the movie, like, oh, can't we ever have a normal year of Hogwarts? Like, wow, that's a interesting way of saying that a child got murdered, Ron. What? I don't know. It's just like it's a very weirdly optimistic ending. Like it just feels very out of place for like the tragedy of obviously Cedric Diggory dying in this movie. So yeah, so those are some of my issues with the Goblet of Fire, but also stuff I really like about it. So overall, I think it's a good movie with some aspects that really drag it down for me. So that's what I thought about it. All right, then now we're moving on to the fifth film of the Harry Potter series, which is The Order of the Phoenix. So when this film starts out and the when the movie begins, you can tell that the Harry Potter series is very much changing from what it used to be, because the tone that the movie sets immediately is much more solemn than previous films, like in complete contrast to what I was mentioned before with the extremely out of place happy ending that we got in sort of optimistic ending that we got in the end of Goblet of Fire. But with this one, the tone is very much solemn and very much dreary, where with like Dudley and Harry's conversation, with like the two of them, where you see this character with the Dursleys before, who used to be these like cartoonishly this cartoonishly evil family who you couldn't take them seriously. But now it seems like with Dudley's conversation with Harry, it seems like he actually is a more realistic and down to earth like bully figure, and sort of getting on Harry's insecurities about obviously seeing Cedric die and stuff. And it's just like it's a very good starting tone for the film in coming off of what happened in the last one. And this film also, in regards to sort of changing and sort of becoming more adult, this film definitely touches a lot more on the politics of the wizarding world to varying degrees of success. So I do find it kind of interesting, the conflict that is presented in this movie with the of course the Ministry of Magic, which suspects Dumbledore of some kind of conspiracy of Voldemort like hiding in the shadows, but there isn't really any proof that he has returned yet. So it's all about plausible deniability and stuff. And I do like that they sort of do introduce that aspect of it, because I do kind of find it interesting. I also will say that another thing that I really liked about this movie was that I think Harry Potter as a character is the most interesting he is in any of the movies in this film. Like, seeing him having to take charge and become somewhat of a leader and like teach the students at Hogwarts is when, obviously they're sort of being neutered by the Ministry of Magic and not being able to be taught about how to defend themselves. With, seeing Harry really step up and become this leading figure, it is really interesting to me. And like on top of having to deal with all that stuff and kind of becoming this leader figure, he's also trying to keep like Voldemort from invading his mind, which also caused a lot of like drama and stuff and things for him to overcome. So I really like Harry in this movie. I think he's a very interesting and compelling protagonist. So this is however, one of the things I have to say about this movie is this is the point in the series where I sort of was watching and I realized that the wizard fights in this universe are kind of lame. Like, it really, in the end, it really all the wizard fights come down to in the end is like them flicking their wands at each other like as quick as they can. And I feel like I don't know, it's just like, it bothers me because like I feel like when you have magic, you can get so much more creative than that. And I don't know, I just feel like a lot of the fights in this a lot of the wizard on wizard battles in this series like can get pretty uncreative at times and be kind of not very interesting. Like, again, it's just like sort of flicking wands at each other and making lasers shoot out, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just not really as interesting as I feel it could be, definitely. And and that's honestly why the best fight in this series is undoubtedly the Voldemort versus Dumbledore fight that happens at the end of this movie, which, like, I don't know, it's just the Voldemort versus Dumbledore fight is really the only taste we get of in the Harry Potter series of what it really could be between like this grand epic battle between these two like high level wizards, which, I don't know, it's just like, it feels like the fight choreography in Harry Potter just sort of peaked with Dumbledore versus Voldemort, and never really sort of could live up to that standard after that. And even though, honestly, like, the Dumbledore versus Voldemort fight is kind of a little short in my opinion and could have been extended more and had more cool stuff in it, because I don't know, I feel like watching it, it's actually like I think only 2 minutes long, which honestly is kind of short for this like epic grand battle between two master wizards. And, like, I don't know, it's just like, it's the best fight in the series, no doubt, but at the same time I don't feel like it's as good as it could have been, and I feel like a lot of the other fights just really pale in comparison in terms of the wizard on wizard battles, because like it's just, they're just not really that interesting, and they don't use the magical spells that could be utilized in the most creative of ways. So I mean, that's just one of the bit of a problems with the whole series that I sort of started noticing a lot more in this movie, which does focus definitely some more on action between wizards in the near the end of this movie. So another thing that bothers me about this film is the actual Order of the Phoenix, which is the title of the movie is named after them. They don't really do a whole lot. Like, I mean, they're not in this movie a ton, and like we're introduced to them at the beginning of this movie, and like none of the characters we haven't seen before are developed in or given focus to in any way. Like, literally, can you remember like can you remember actual character traits of any of the Order of the Phoenix characters that were actually introduced in this movie? Like, again, outside of the characters that we've already been introduced to before, like Sirius Black and like Severus Snape, who are revealed to be members of the Order of the Phoenix. The new characters from the Order of the Phoenix that we do get introduced in this movie, they have like no development, they have like no real focus given to them, and it just feels like, I don't know, it just feels like they were sort of not given the spotlight they should when the movie is literally named after them. And then, like, at the end of the movie, they just kind of show up and at the end fight of the movie, and, like, I guess they fight against the Death Eaters and stuff, and then Sirius dies, which, you know, it should be a real tearjerker, but honestly, we haven't really seen Sirius since the third movie, and I don't know, we just haven't gotten, like, a ton of screen time with him, and I just feel like the Order of the Phoenix should have been much more fleshed out and had much more to do, but just really doesn't in the end, honestly, and so that bothers me. And like also another thing that, so I do genuinely like aspects of this movie, but I feel like one thing I have to point out in this movie that really bothers me, because I feel like it's such a missed opportunity, which is that House Slytherin, you know, the evil house, or the Snaky Boys as some people call them, which is like, so my issue is House Slytherin is supposed to be like cunning and ambitious. That's one of their main character traits outside of like blood racism or whatever the fuck. Like, and so what my question is, why didn't we ever see any Slytherin joining Dumbledore's secret army that is introduced in this movie? Like, it seems like the perfect opportunity where you can actually showcase these sort of good aspects of the traits of Slytherin, like with them being, you know, these sneaky, sly, you know, people who are trying to circumvent the rules to, you know, gain in their own power, and where you could show that how that could actually sort of be used for good, with them, like, you know, being some of the main principal characters in you know, Dumbledore's army, and with Harry's secret defense against the dark arts teaching, because like it would have been such a great chance to actually see some complexity from Slytherin House, and, you know, in trying to make them not just the bad guy house, which they basically are in the movies, even though the movies try to deny that, but it's true. But, like, but again, this movie, it only shows the Slytherin ever trying to, like, just suck up to Umbridge, and who is, again, stifling their ability to learn magic, and it makes no sense, because, like, the Slytherin guys are supposed to be the guys who are, like, the most into, like, you know, progressing their abilities and being the best. So why would they suck up to this person who is, like, trying to stifle their creativity and stifle their magic abilities and not teach them anything of, like, real strength? And it doesn't make sense. It's just, like, because, again, this is such a missed opportunity with Slytherin, where you could, like, have like, the characters actually, you know, sort of see more positive traits of these Slytherin guys, and maybe, like, you know, for example, Fred and George, who, like, Fred and George, who are, you know, the Weasley siblings, they could sort of see how maybe a lot of the Slytherin guys are also like these really clever tricksters who try to you know, fight, who try to, you know, stick it to authority, like, you know, like they do throughout this movie. And, like, I don't know, it just feels like it just feels like such a missed opportunity to actually give more focus to Slytherin and actually make it more complex, and see how, you know, these guys aren't, like, inherently bad. They just have sort of these conditioned attitudes that are sort of a product of, like, this echo chamber that has been created, but sort of trying to, you know, in this Dumbledore's in this secret Dumbledore's army that Harry was forming, trying to unite against a common enemy that is Umbridge, who's trying to stifle magical ability in the school. And it's just like, but they didn't do that. It was a perfect opportunity, and they didn't do that, and it just bothers me so much, because there's such an opportunity for it to be more interesting, but they don't take it, and it's just like, oh my gosh. And, like, overall, in the end, this film is good, like, but there is just, I don't know, this film is good. It's a good film, The Order of the Phoenix is, but, like, something about it has just always been kind of forgettable to me. Like, it's never really been the most memorable film to me, and I think probably the biggest reason for why that is because, like, the Ministry of Magic subplot, which is, you know, a main theme of this movie, and, you know, what happens in it with everything, with Umbridge and everything, just, like, it doesn't really amount to anything in the end, does it? I mean, like, it just, like, you know, with I don't know. Yeah, the Ministry of Magic subplot just doesn't really amount to much in the end. Like we don't really ever see much of the Ministry again, except for when in the seventh movie they have to go find the Horcrux, and then it's just like it's sort of popped out of existence. Doesn't matter. It's just like I don't know. It feels like it's spent all this time building up the Ministry of Magic and all the complex political situation, and then it doesn't matter in the end. So I don't know. That's just bothersome to me. I mean, it's just I don't know. This movie is fine. It's good, but it's I don't know, a little forgettable to me. It's not one of those movies that I really want to go back and rewatch in terms of the Harry Potter movies. So that's basically what I thought about the Order of the Phoenix. All right, now sixth on the list, we're going to talk about the Half-Blood Prince. This movie is fucking boring. This movie is such a bore to rewatch. Oh my gosh. I like this movie, the Half-Blood Prince, along with the first movie, which was the Philosopher's Stone or the Sorcerer's Stone, whatever. This movie, along with the first movie, it was probably the only one of the Harry Potter movies that I would say was just a bad movie, and I don't really like it very much. I mean, it's just like the Half-Blood Prince. It's just a lot of the movie is very slow, and it really doesn't feel like much of anything of importance is actually happening until like the last 30 minutes. And it's just like also like Lucifer, what happened to the fucking color? Like, this movie, it looks like it was shot in black and white half the time. Like, the color palette is so dry and unappealing. Like, seriously, remember back in the first, like, few movies where, like, there was a ton of color in this, movie franchise, and there was, it was just so colorful and vibrant, and now in this movie, in the fucking Half-Blood Prince, it's so dry and so gray, and, like, I don't understand. Why? Who the fuck shot this movie? It's just so ridiculous. Oh my gosh, it's so fucking... Ugh. There's like almost no color in any of the shots in this fucking movie, and it's terrible, and I hate it. Oh my gosh. Okay, so there's... So yeah, like that's one really big problem with the movie I have, which is that it just looks ugly, and like there's other things that bother me about this movie though. Like firstly... So, there's a scene in this movie where the Death Eaters just randomly destroy a bridge in broad daylight for no reason. I mean, like, I don't even know why it was included in this movie, because, like, these movies never really provide any payoff to the relationship between Muggles and wizards. Like, have you ever noticed that? It's not, like, ever established how the existence of magic is a secret, even though, like, there are examples shown about the wizarding world and how it affects the real world. Like, we have these examples of, people spotted the flying car in the second movie, and, like, this bridge collapses, because of wizards in, this movie, and, like, but nothing comes of it. Nothing fucking comes of it. There's, like, no payoff to the relationship between Muggles and wizards in this movie. It's just about the wizard conflict in the end, and, like, there are examples shown of how, like, the wizarding world, like, and with Voldemort, like, he believes in, like, basically wizard supremacy, and with how he is, like, wizards are, like, superior to Muggles, but, like, we never get any, payoff on this, and how, like, the Muggles fit into this, like, the regular people, which, seems like it would be important with, like, the wizards, this wizard supremacy cult thinking they're better than, like, with the wizard supremacy cult thinking, like, they're better than, like, regular humans. So what's Voldemort's plan? Is he just wanting to conquer the non-wizarding worlds? Like, is that his plan? Is the story just to keep the wizarding world separate from, the, regular human world? Well, if that's the case, then what's the point of introducing this whole thing of, like, what's the point of the whole point of introducing this conflict between the human world and the wizarding world if, like, it's never gonna amount to anything in the end, and it's just, like, a conflict kept completely separate from the real world in the end, and, like, it's just within the wizarding world. It doesn't make any sense. It's just, like, it's not, there's no payoff to it. Like, the relationship between the wizarding world and the Muggle world in these movies is terribly handled. It is not, like, well established at all. I mean, it's just, like, so that's one thing in this movie that really bothers me about this. So, secondly, the romance in this movie is awful. Oh my gosh. I was talking about the romantic subplots in Goblet of Fire, but they just, oh my gosh, they're even worse in this movie. Like, Ron, so what happens is Ron finds this other girl in this movie, this random girl who the audience knows is completely irrelevant, and the only purpose of her is to make Hermione jealous and sad, and it's so cringeworthy, and I don't understand why they waste so much fucking time on it, and, like, Harry just randomly falls in love with Ginny out of nowhere, despite the fact that the last two movies, like, he spent simping over Cho Chang, who never amounted to anything in the end because she's just forgotten. She like never appears again except for maybe like one scene in these last three movies. Like, so what was the point of that relationship? What was the point of Cho Chang's character if like it wasn't going to amount to anything in the end? I don't know. Like, why did Harry just suddenly start liking Ginny in this movie? I don't know. Oh my gosh, the romance in this movie is just terrible. Like honestly, in my view, like I always thought that, and tell me how many of you think this, but I always thought that Harry and Hermione had more potential as a ship than Harry and Ginny or Ron and Hermione ever did. Like honestly, like do you agree with me on this? I mean, like they have. Yes, I get it that like it is sort of nice to have a legitimately wholesome platonic bond between Harry and Hermione in these movies because they do legitimately have a pretty great friendship. And you could say, oh, you know, you don't really have to like ruin it with having them have this romantic attraction because not all like stories have to have this romantic bond. And I understand that. Like as someone who is aromantic and does not experience romantic attraction in the first place, I understand that. But I just feel like, I don't know, Harry and Hermione have legitimately good chemistry and tons of screen time together where you get the sense that they're just like a rock for each other, where they really look out for each other and are constantly like on really good terms with each other. And I just see way more reasons to ship those two together than, what we actually got, which is Ginny and Harry basically had almost no build-up at all, and Ron and Hermione, which basically spend like over half of their screen time together just arguing in these movies. It's just like, I don't know, I just feel like Harry and Hermione is just, maybe it's different in the books, but like where the relationships between Ginny and Harry and Ron and Hermione are more developed, but like, no, not in the movies. I do not feel the chemistry there at all. I honestly feel more chemistry with Harry and Hermione, to be perfectly honest. And so that's what I think. And so another thing that bothers me about this movie is that like, so there's a scene near the beginning of the movie where it shows Snape talking to the Malfoys about Draco's mission. Like, and this is at the beginning of the movie. And like, I don't know, I feel like this... So, what bothers me about this is because, like, it robs a ton of suspense from the movie. Where, like, I feel like this scene should have been cut out or just shown after Dumbledore dies to leave the audience, like, wondering what Draco is really doing and if Snape is actually, like, aiding the villains. Because, like, then you would have sort of this... wondering, what is actually going on. Because obviously we've seen before the Snake has sort of been this suspicious figure, but it's always turned out to be actually on the right side of things in the end. So in this movie, you could really be fooled into thinking, maybe he is still really, a good guy, and maybe we're not really understanding him, and like, and trying to figure out what his deal is with Draco Malfoy and all that. But again, there's just a scene in the beginning that basically spoils the entire plot of what Snape is trying to do, where they say, where he's talking to the Death Eaters that, he's a double agent, or rather a triple agent, who, says he's working for Dumbledore, and they say that, we need Draco to kill Dumbledore, and if he can't do it, then you need to do it, and you need to protect him. It's basically spoiling, like, everything that Draco and Snape are sent to accomplish. Like, what the hell? What was with, what happened to, like, the earlier movies where we'd actually get mystery on what was going on and try to figure things out for ourselves? Why did we have to get this, like, scene in the beginning of the movie, like, spoiling everything that it happens in it with Draco and Snape? It doesn't really make any sense to me. Why would you do that? It just really bothers me. Like, I don't know. It's just, so, speaking of Draco Malfoy in this movie, he moves on from a pathetic bully to full-on villain in this movie, and it really doesn't work very well. It really doesn't. Like, I just don't give a shit about Draco, to be honest. Like, he's so uninteresting as a character, and he was just like, literally, he was present, Draco, I'm pretty sure he was present in a single scene in the last movie, where he was just making fun of Harry Potter, and, like, nothing else. And now in this movie, like, he's the centerpiece of all the drama that is happening. And it's like, what? Why was this not built up to more? His whole dilemma throughout this movie is like, if he can really turn to the dark side. And this movie just, like, his whole dilemma in this movie is like, if he can really turn to the dark side and if he can really kill Dumbledore. But I just don't care about Draco. I don't really give a shit about him. Like, he's so uninteresting of a character to me. And he's just been, like, this side character comic relief villain basically for the past 5 movies, and it's just like, why should I give a shit? Why the fuck should I give a shit about like this guy's whole dilemma about what he's trying to do? And it's just like, I don't know, it just, the whole drama with it really just rings hollow for me. And because a really good chunk of the movie is based around it, it's just like, I don't know, I don't find it interesting. Like, it's just really uninteresting to me. I just don't care. Like, honestly, the only actually good parts of this movie are the last 30 minutes or so with, like, Harry and Dumbledore retrieving the Horcrux. It is legitimately a good scene. And, of course, Dumbledore's death was sad, with him dying and stuff, and Snape being with the one to do it. But overall, yeah, like, not a big fan of this movie. I don't really like it very much. It's just, like, very boring throughout a lot of it. I don't think a lot of the decisions work. Like, it's just, again, shot horribly. Like, I hate the direction of this movie. Like, there's almost no color in it throughout, like, half the movie. It's just like, oh my gosh. So yeah, I'm really not a big fan of the Half-Blood Prince. I think it's a very boring movie and not, like, I don't know, it just feels like it's wasting its time for, like, the majority of the runtime. It's just like, I don't care. I don't like the Half-Blood Prince. I don't see any reason to want to, like, go rewatch this movie. So that's basically what I thought about the Half-Blood Prince. Alright, moving on to talking about the Deathly Hallows Part 1. So, I know a bunch of people hate on this movie, saying how it's basically just a prologue to the Deathly Hallows, but, unpopular opinion maybe, I actually like this movie. Yes, I am a fan of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. I think it's a good movie. Like, honestly, people say, like, oh, nothing happens in this movie, but, like, honestly, the ugly truth is that more happens in Part 1 of the Deathly Hallows than in some of the other Harry Potter movies. Like, there have been movies where just, like, in this series, where not much has actually really progressed plot-wise, and not much has really happened. And, honestly, in this movie, like, the plot does kind of move legitimately fast in a lot of parts. So, anyway, talking about it, so for the Deathly Hallows, I really like Deathly Hallows Part 1. I really like the first half of this movie a lot. Like, it really gets going fast with Harry and Hermione, like, leaving their families behind, and, because of just how dire everything has become. And, like, there's this real sense in the movie there's this sense of real stakes present from the very beginning, because it finally feels like shit is actually going down. Like, Dumbledore is dead. Voldemort is gaining power, and, like, stuff is really about to happen. It just, like, gets you into that from the exact beginning of this movie, and really just keeps going with it. And, like, the action scene where everyone's trying to escape the Death Eaters at the beginning is really good and intense. And again, like, it's not just a wizard on wizard battle where, like I was saying before in the Order of the Phoenix, where they're just basically tapping their sticks at each other. In this one, it's this really cool and really well shot and directed scene where it's basically a getaway where they're trying to fly away in their brooms, and Hagrid is, like, going through this going through the city location trying to keep Harry safe. And again, don't understand how nobody in the Muggle world seems to recognize the existence of witches with, like, all this stuff going on literally directly around them. But, like, seriously, how can wizards be kept a secret from Muggles when literally a giant battle is happening in the air above them? I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. But whatever. It's a really cool scene. It's a really intense scene. And one of this movie's greatest strengths is that the characters really don't have much room to breathe at all, and are, like, constantly moving all the time as they are on the run from Death Eaters. And I really like that. It really shows, like, that this movie is not messing around. It's really, like, having the characters be on guard at all times because of how intense the situation is. And, like, the scene where they're, breaking into the Ministry of Magic to get the Horcrux is, it's a really great scene. It has a lot of, honestly, funny moments that I did legitimately laugh at with some of the stuff that goes on in it. But, yeah, it's really entertaining. Again, I do question how and why Voldemort was somehow able to take over the Ministry of Magic off screen. I mean, what? When did that happen? Like, okay, seriously. I mean, wasn't the point of the story in the 5th movie, like what I was talking about before with the Ministry of Magic, like, wasn't the point of that story in the 5th movie them trying to prove to the Ministry that Voldemort had returned, and, how they needed to fight him, and how they needed to get into gear, and the Ministry of Magic had to get off its ass and do something? But then, just now, off screen, the Ministry was somehow infiltrated by Voldemort, and, like, they're in Voldemort's clutches. Why didn't we see any of that? Why didn't we see, like, why was it never explained how that happened? It doesn't make any sense. It's, like, out of nowhere. I didn't understand it as a kid. I don't understand it as an adult now. It's just, like, happened off screen, and it's not explained, and it's just, again, it feels like the Ministry of Magic subplot, like, in the whole 5th movie, like, that took up so much of its runtime, just really amounted to absolutely fucking nothing in the end, because it's just, like, just gets taken over by Voldemort in the end, like, off screen. It's just, like, doesn't make any sense. So that does bother me. Like this movie definitely it has a very exciting, a very fast paced first half, but like again, it does definitely slow down by its second half with the characters. They spend a lot of time struggling to survive out in the wilderness with them having to deal with the influence of the Horcrux, and it does get definitely slower for sure. But as someone who is known to enjoy The Walking Dead, I kind of like it when shows just when media when fiction just kind of shows characters just trying to survive and how difficult it is. I feel like I don't know, that's a good scenario to work with because it just sort of shows the characters getting to their breaking point and having to slow down, kind of, take in everything that's been going on. So I sort of like that. I mean, you get a sense of just and again, like you see in this movie just how difficult it is trying to survive with them constantly being hunted. Like when even like Luna's father tries to sell them out near the end of the movie to get his daughter back, it just really gives a sense of like there is literally nowhere that is safe. They just have to keep being on the run and keep moving throughout the movie to like survive and try to handle this Horcrux that they found. It's just like it's good. It's a good scenario. I like it. Fuck the haters for this movie. I think it's a good movie, and there are some slow moments in this movie that I think are like kind of too slow. Like for example, the dance scene between Harry and Hermione, like just that really could have been cut out. I don't see what the point for it was. It's just like, again, it's more shipping bait between the two of them, but like again, they don't actually get together in the end, and it's just like I don't see what the point of it was. Like, but again, so for the most part though, I don't really think this movie drags out a ton. Like I think that maybe I don't know. I just don't really think this movie is really as slow as people say it is. I think a lot of things, happen with it, and there's a lot of cool stuff in it. I mean, like, I do think that I get that people are mad that they split up the seventh book into two movies and made it like a two-parter, and like I feel like by trimming a few things down, you could have probably had just part one and part two of the Deathly Hallows just joined together into one 4-hour long movie. And I get that maybe as a financial decision that wouldn't have been as good as just having them separated. But I definitely think you could have done it, and you could have just had a 4-hour movie of the Deathly Hallows. So I think that definitely could have worked. But again, that's just me, and I don't know. I just don't see why you couldn't have had it as one movie together, even though it would have been a very long movie. But hey, people turn out to watch the Snyder Cut, so I mean, 4-hour movies are possible to be really good and keep people's interest. So anyway, in regards to this movie, there are scenes that do honestly like get to me. Like there are some very powerful scenes in this movie. Like for example, where Harry finally visits the place where his parents died for the first time, and like it's a very effective scene and just very somber and very just allows you to take in the atmosphere and the weight of what is happening and how it has an impact on Harry's character. And like for example, Dobby's death scene at the end of the movie was definitely very sad and very emotional, and like just scenes like that are powerful in this movie and they really get to you. And like also here's one thing, but does anyone find it fucked up that elf slavery is like still a normal thing in the wizarding world that never gets addressed? I mean, like, it's portrayed as this normal thing that wizards just like do. They keep these people as slaves. Like we saw that, Sirius, obviously, who's supposed to be a good guy, he kept like a slave in Creature, and like it's never addressed that like this is an incredibly fucked up thing that should maybe be changed. As like sort of the status quo is kind of kept at the end of the movie, and the slave dies protecting his master, Harry Potter, and it's just like I don't know. It's a little fucked up, but I mean, it's just but whatever. Disregarding that, this movie, like, overall, I think The Deathly Hallows Part 1 is very underrated as far as Harry Potter movies go, and, like, I would honestly rank it pretty high in terms of Harry Potter movies. I definitely think it's one of the better ones. Like, it's not fantastic or anything, but I think it is still a good movie, and I think there are a lot of things in it that are definitely worth watching and not skipping. So that's basically what I thought about The Deathly Hallows, Part 1. I thought it was a good movie and underrated in the series, so yeah, that's basically what I thought about it. So I just ate a meal of a bunch of greasy rice and greasy meat from a place that doesn't really have the best food, and that coupled with my tiredness, because it's 4 in the morning right now and I haven't slept, and I'm recording this, makes this, yeah, I'm kind of losing it, but I guess I'll finish this. I guess I'll finish these reviews. Anyway, so talking about the Deathly Hallows Part 2, which is the final installment in the series. So, in the Harry Potter series, of course, not counting the Fantastic Beasts movies, which I've never watched, and I heard that, like, the second one, The Crimes of Grindelwald or whatever, is really bad. But anyway, so in regards to Deathly Hallows Part 2, the Deathly Hallows Part 2, I think, is probably by default the best Harry Potter movie, even though I still don't think it's amazing. The best thing about Part 2 is that this movie just really gets going. Like, we already got the much slower, character building and setup that we did in Part 1 and, the Deathly Hallows Part 1. But now, in this movie, it's pretty much just all action and plot progression. And I really like that because it's like, this movie is continually interesting and engaging, like, the entire way through, and it really never slows down. And, like, I just feel like it's a very entertaining movie to watch. Definitely the most entertaining of the Harry Potter movies for me. And, the film immediately gets out swinging with... the film immediately starts out swinging with, like, it immediately getting into the raid on Gringotts, which is just a great scene. And after that, like, basically they get the Horcrux, and then they return to after that they return to Hogwarts pretty much almost immediately after that to quickly find the other Horcrux. And, like, I don't know, with Harry, and then, like, one of my favorite scenes in this movie that is just a testament to how well paced the movie is and how it just constantly keeps things in motion is when Harry basically, there's this scene in the movie where, after Harry gets to Hogwarts, Snape, basically, who is the new headmaster of Hogwarts, he basically, lines everyone up and says, one of you must know where Harry Potter is, and you must bring him to me. And you think how the scene is setting it up, that there's going to be this whole thing where it's going to drag out the plot line that we've seen before with, like, the characters trying to sort of hide something from the teachers and sort of sneak around. But then, and then it's sort of going to take up a big chunk of the movie. But then what happens is Harry Potter just, like, immediately steps out and said, "Yeah, I'm right here, bitch. What are you going to do about it?" And it's like, I freaking love that scene because it's just so cool and shows, like, Harry is just, like, not hiding anymore. It's just, like, coming out and being like, "Yeah, I'm here, bitch. What are you going to do about it?" I love that scene. I still love that scene. It's really cool, and it really just is a testament to, like, how this movie really doesn't waste time on, like, dragging out anything. It just really gets to it, and I really do like that, and it keeps the movie story, constantly engaging and moving forward. And, like, so besides the Gringotts break-in, there are also just a bunch of other really cool scenes and set pieces in this movie that I really like. Like, for example, the burning of the Room of Requirement, which is just a really awesome and well-directed scene. And, like, Voldemort's whole siege of Hogwarts is really... epic and cool, and, like, everything just feels like in this final movie in the Harry Potter saga, everything just feels so much more epic than in previous ones. It really feels like this is the end game, with everything that's going on in it. And, like, it just hits, I mean, like, and that is due in this movie in no small part to the excellent music in this movie. The score in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 is, like, so good. And I was really, like, bopping my head to, like, a ton of the tracks that were playing in this movie. It's just, like, it has a really good and underrated score in the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Like, where it just hits all the right beats in all of the scenes and really just enhances the movie because, like, the music just doesn't miss, man. It's so good in this movie. And that's why one of the things that I really like about it. Another thing that was really cool was obviously seeing Snape's backstory in the film and, like, seeing how, everything happened with him and, what he sort of had to go through and with what he was doing and why he was doing the things he was doing. And, like, it really did make me appreciate him more as a character. And it was also, honestly, probably Snape's backstory and getting that revealed to us was probably the best and most emotional scene in the movie, which was just, like, I don't know, it was very impressive how in a short period of time you sort of get to, completely change your perspective on this character that we've seen before. Like, where you sort of had some of the stuff that he was going through hinted to him, but just seeing how everything played out and how, like, everything sort of becomes clear. And just, like, it's a really great scene seeing Snape's backstory with, like, the sort of memory potion, whatever thingy, however that works. But, yeah, so that was a great scene. Also, I just gotta give a shout out to, my boy, Neville, in this movie, because Neville in this movie really comes into his own with, like, everything he does. Like, how he basically stood up to Voldemort and, like, he basically stood up to Voldemort and gave that inspirational speech and like wasn't running away and being like because honestly with the other movies before this movie, like Neville is just sort of this character who kind of doesn't really do a ton and just sort of in the background is this like cowardly, nerdy, geeky guy. And now in this movie, he's really awesome. He honestly is. Like, he's this really cool character who's like really active and doing a lot of stuff, like out of nowhere, but very much appreciated. With him, like, dealing the final blow against Nagini, the final Horcrux, and being what allows Harry to defeat Voldemort. I mean, shout out to my boy Neville, man, getting the screen time and character development he deserves. I mean, it's strange to say, but I was honestly more invested in Neville than I was with the actual main characters of the movie. Like, I really like Neville in this movie. He's really cool. I gotta say that one thing that bothered me was, like, his whole romantic interest in Luna Lovegood came out of fucking nowhere. Like, what? Was that ever built up to at all? Like, what? Why is romance in these movies so poorly developed? I don't understand it. It's like, it doesn't make sense for me. Like, I don't know. So that did bother me, but, disregarding that. So, however, while I do like this movie and I think it's very entertaining and it's just like a really good watch, I do have my issues with the film. So one of the first things is that there's no actual resolution at the end of this movie to the fact that the House of Slytherin is portrayed as a bunch of racist wizard supremacists who, like, they wanted to give Harry Potter up to Voldemort in this movie. Like, we see that, like, the class Slytherin basically wanted to, give him up when Voldemort said, you need to give Harry Potter up or I'll destroy Hogwarts. And, like, there's no resolution to this. Like, no, McGonagall just sends, like, them to the dungeons and, everyone claps because, hooray, Slytherin, the bullies, finally got what they deserved and they were sent to the dungeons and it's like, oh, it's this great moment. Like, but, seriously, like, we don't see them again, like, and it's just so silly, like, this idea that, oh, this should be this celebratory moment that we're sending, like, all these kids who have been stereotyped and echo-chambered into this, like, dark wizard supremacy mindset, like, oh, how great and cathartic it is that they all got sent to the dungeons, these literal children, like, there's no, what happened to Slytherin after the big climax of this movie is over? I just don't, like, what are you going to do after you release them? You're just going to tell their parents that, like, oh, we just locked your kids in a dungeon for, like, you don't think they're going to hold any resentment? Like, what's the payoff to Slytherin being this literal evil house of snake children? And it's like, Slytherin was such a fucking waste in this series. Like, they had the potential to, I don't, because Harry Potter, the series, threatens to make Slytherin an actually interesting house by, like, going into how isolation and echo chambers can, like, form bigots into their views and sort of reinforce them. But this is never really elaborated on or solved in the series because, like, and Slytherin House just continues to be the one-dimensional bad guys all the way to the end. And, like, and, like, oh, you're gonna say, oh, well, not all Slytherins are bad guys. Like, Severus Snape wasn't a bad guy, even though he was a literal Death Eater, a wizard Nazi, before he sort of redeemed himself. And, well, Draco sort of had a redemption, except not really. And, like, again, besides those two, really all of the other Slytherin characters you see, they get basically almost no redemption and are just the evil bad guys and don't really get any moment where they, sort of fight to protect Hogwarts. We don't see any of that. And Draco's redemption is honestly, like, it's so pathetic. Like, he doesn't even do anything and he just leaves the battle with his family. That's not a redemption. That's him just, like, giving up and separating himself from everything. And, like, it's just so, there was no moment with him that actually, sort of brought his character arc to a close. He just peters out and leaves. It's just like, it's so unsatisfying and not making sense to what was building up for him. And it's, I don't know, it's just like, Slytherin is just like, it would have been, what would have been so much more interesting for me to see from this series, so it would have been very interesting to see Harry Potter, who, like, the Sorting Hat originally considered putting in the Slytherin house. Like, you could see over the course of the, and this is my headcanon, but you could see over the course of the Harry Potter series, like, how Harry Potter, like, actually recognized over the course of the series that Slytherins, like, are people too, who need to be reached rather than being left alone to fester in their, sort of negative ideals, which is what we've seen from, like, characters. But that's never really done. And, like, you could have had to where, basically, Harry Potter would be the one to, in the end, convince them to fight back against Voldemort. But, like, I don't know, it's just, like, that doesn't happen. And there's no resolution to the whole Slytherin thing, because, like, I don't know, Harry Potter's main objective in this movie, even though it is very entertaining to watch, like Harry's main objective in this movie is to find and destroy Voldemort's Horcruxes, which is just like, it's fun to see and an entertaining plotline, but it's just like not interesting at an emotional level. Like, wouldn't it have been much more like satisfying and cathartic to see Harry being this sort of bridge to actually sort of, join the houses together and like sort of redeem Slytherin and like say that he believed in them, like and sort of try to get them to fight with him for the sake of Hogwarts, like against the Death Eaters. I don't know. I feel like they could have been like such a much more interesting character arc than what we got in this last movie, which is him trying to find and destroy the Horcruxes, which is like, it's entertaining to watch, but it's just like, it's not the most emotional thing to, witness and like experience, because it's just like, what is this doing in terms of a character perspective? I don't really know. Not really much in my opinion. So it's just like so many missed opportunities in regards to Slytherin, and just stuff that really bothers me. Also, Harry dying in this movie and coming back to life was complete bullshit. I mean, like, I get how it happened, as like, Harry basically used the resurrection stone that was left in the snitch Dumbledore gave him. But here's my question. Why was the stone never used for anyone else? Why just Harry? I mean, it's this resurrection stone that is not really given a bunch of limitation stones. They can just bring people back from the dead, apparently. But like, on top of it not really making sense, again, the whole thing with the time turners, why don't they ever use it for anyone else? The resurrection stone. But again, it sort of ruins the moment of Harry deciding to be brave and sacrificing himself to defeat Voldemort, because like, it's a very powerful scene when you watch it, but then like you just realize, oh, resurrection stone, he'll just come back to life. Like, I don't know. I mean, at least for crying out loud, it's just like, it feels like it has no consequences, and Harry hasn't actually like really taking this main step. At least with Jesus, when he died on the cross, he like came back after 3 days, but he was still like brutally like tortured while being on the cross. Harry like dies instantly. So it's just like, it doesn't really have as much impact as it should. And in my opinion, maybe this is a hot take, but I think that it would have been much better if Harry had actually stayed dead by the end of this movie. However, his courage and his strength would have actually like inspired his friends to fight and be the ones to defeat Voldemort with him gone. I think that would have been a much more satisfying ending to this series, even though it would have been much sadder because obviously the main protagonist would be dead. But I think it would have been a much better ending to the series than what we got. And I mean, so also another thing that really bothers me, the reason that Voldemort is defeated in this movie is so dumb. Like, the thing that decides the fight between Harry and Voldemort is the arbitrary allegiance of a fucking stick, of a fucking wand, and the technicalities of how it gets transferred from owner to owner. That's so lame. Like, what? Like, and it doesn't even make sense. Like, Harry says, oh, well, the wand belongs to me because I disarmed Draco, who disarmed Dumbledore. But, like, Harry disarmed Draco by taking his wand from him, like, physically, and not using magic. And it was not the Elder Wand, so it doesn't even... It's a whole fucking mess, and so ridiculous, that, like, the entire conflict and the final battle of the series between Harry and Voldemort was decided by that, of all things. Really? Really? The fucking wand mechanics? That's what decides, like, the final battle between these two characters? It doesn't make any fucking sense. It's so stupid. Oh my gosh. Another thing that bothers me about this movie is, like, while I would have to say that the, my voice is getting scratchy, I've been talking for a while, but anyway, so another thing that bothers me is the siege on Hogwarts that happens in this movie is pretty cool, and it's legitimately really epic and awesome. However, the final battle that happens after that, after Harry comes back to life, is kind of underwhelming to me, and not nearly as epic as the siege of Hogwarts that took place beforehand, because, like, and it's a little too short. Like, it goes by relatively quickly, and so, even some moments that could be, like, pretty cool, like, for example, with Mama Weasley, killing Bellatrix at the end, like, that should have been really cool, but when you actually see it in the movie, it's just, like, it's two old ladies flicking magic sticks at each other at average speed. Like, it's just, like, not this super cool, epic fight scene that it really should be. And it's just, like, again, goes back to what I was saying before with, like, these one-on-one wizard battles, which are just not really, like, they're really not as interesting as they could be and should be, and, so that sort of does hold the movie back in a way. I don't feel like the climax of this movie was as epic as it could have been. Or I guess the final climax, because, well, anyway, so also, Voldemort in this movie, he's kind of a little bit pathetic. I mean, like, he literally just dies in the end by disintegrating after he's disarmed by Harry. I mean, like, honestly, Tom Riddle is not, let's be honest, Tom Riddle is not really that interesting of a character, but the actor who plays Voldemort and, the makeup really sold how terrifying he could be. And we saw when he was introduced in the, Goblet of Fire that he could really, be this incredibly intimidating presence, and have this, like, really good sense of ominous, dread towards him whenever he was on screen. But, like, the thing is, he just keeps failing at killing Harry throughout these movies. And it's just, like, it really, over and over, to the point where he just really isn't that threatening anymore by, like, the end of this final movie. And it's just, like, I don't know. In this movie, like, Voldemort just kind of came off as, a lot of the time, as a frail old man. And he was, like, constantly screaming in pain and making these goofy faces and noises. Like, remember when he was, like, there was supposed to be this really depressing and sad scene where it was showing, like, Harry's body, and everyone thought he died, and Voldemort was, like, basically bragging that he had won. And he just makes this ridiculous laugh, like, hey, 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 hey. It's just like, oh, come on, what the hell? It's just kind of ridiculous, and really sort of takes away a lot of the scariness factor of Voldemort as a villain. And I don't know, it feels like Voldemort was just really not all that terrifying in this villain compared to previous installments. And, like, and also, I need to point this out, because, like, there were so many opportunities where Voldemort could have and should have killed Harry during their final fight, but didn't. Like, seriously, Tom, you had so many opportunities to kill Harry in this final fight, but you just didn't for some reason. Like, for example, like, there was this moment where, like, Voldemort was basically strangling Harry and choking him out with these bands that he had created. But, like, then in the next scene, so it cuts away from that scene, and then it cuts back to the battle, and then just, Harry is just, like, out of the binds, and it's just like, what happened in between that? You can't just show Harry, like, being suffocated to death, and then, like, cut away from that, and then in the next scene, Harry's just out of them. What happened? Like, did Voldemort just let him go? Why? Why the fuck is Voldemort, like, hitting and kicking Harry in this movie in their final fight? Like, dude, you're a fucking wizard, man. What are you doing? Why are you, like, kneeing Harry in the face? Like, use your killing spell or whatever the fuck, or the giant fire dragon spell that you used against Dumbledore. What are you doing? You should be able to kill Harry very easily. It doesn't make sense in this movie. I don't understand it. So, like, a lot of really dumb moments happen in their final fight between Tom and Harry, and it's just like, overall, anyway, so there are definitely some issues with this movie. In regards to the ultimate ending of the movie and how everything turns out, I think the ending with the time skip is fine. It is kind of cheesy, but it doesn't really bother me as much as it does maybe other people who, like, really take issue with this time skip. Like, the main thing that does bother me about the time skip at the end is just, like, and the resolution of this movie and, like, this franchise, it's just, like, it feels like not a whole lot was resolved in the end. I mean, like, yeah, sure, we defeated the main bad guy, Voldemort, but, like, what about these systemic wizard supremacist attitudes that led to Voldemort taking power? Like, what about the evil snake children who were locked up in the dungeon? What about them? Like, we know that the houses in Hogwarts still exist. We know that Slytherin still exists. So, there's no, actual resolution to the fact that there is this house full of, like, evil children who are, like, being, put in an echo chamber to have their bigoted views, like, amplified throughout, like, their time at school. It's just, like, nothing is resolved. It just doesn't really, like, I don't know, it just feels like a lot of the systemic issues that were brought up in the society of the Wizarding World are not actually addressed in any substantive way by the end of the series. And I think that's probably the worst thing about the ending, and makes me, like, not really feel satisfied by it, even though, it has this whole happy-go-lucky ending where, Harry and all the characters are sending their kids back to Hogwarts, and it's like this new beginning with, like, this new time period, and, like, where everything is much better. But is it really better? Like, we haven't really seen any indication of that, other than that Voldemort is dead. But what's to stop another Voldemort from just coming back and doing the same things with, like, these systemic problems that have not really been addressed? So it's just, like, so that is very bothersome to me about the series, and I think it's a legitimate issue with it. But overall, I still do think that Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 is probably my favorite film. I think it's the most entertaining film. Maybe it doesn't have the least flaws. I think, honestly, weirdly enough, in terms of my favorite, maybe not. So, my favorite of the Harry Potter movies is probably the Deathly Hallows Part 2. But honestly, But if I'm gonna speak honestly, I think Deathly Hallows Part 1 might be the best movie in this franchise with the least flaws, which is the strangest thing to think about because like it's the one everybody hates on and like says, oh, it's like the worst movie of the bunch. But I honestly think like again, Deathly Hallows Part 1 is probably the movie with the least flaws, and Deathly Hallows Part 2 is probably my favorite of the movies and the most entertaining to watch. So yeah, I think the Deathly Hallows are probably you know, thankfully, Harry Potter did actually end up on a high note, and with the last two movies being probably the best of the bunch. So yeah, I mean that's basically what I thought about the Deathly Hallows Parts 1 and 2. So yeah. All right, now basically wrapping up my thoughts, overall thoughts on the Harry Potter series as a whole, because I'm so tired and I need to go to work today. But anyway, so overall, Harry Potter is really not a bad franchise. Like I said before, I enjoyed watching like 6 out of 8 of the movies, and I thought they were good films, even though some are definitely better than others. But like again, one of the biggest things about the Harry Potter franchise for me is like I feel like there's just a lot of missed potential with the series, where like deeper themes that the series introduces about like prejudice and radicalization and the corruption of authority are brought up, but not really resolved or dealt with in a substantive way. And I mean, imagine how much more interesting Harry Potter as a series could have been if it didn't just use these themes as window dressing, which it does, and actually sort of took steps to legitimately take more time and more care in addressing them and actually fleshing them out more, which maybe it would have been turned off kids more to it, but again, it would have been more interesting and probably a better use of the things that had actually been set up in these movies, but it just didn't really do that. So Sean, if you guys don't know of the YouTuber, there's a YouTuber called Sean who did a really great video essay. I'll link it in the description about the Harry Potter series and how basically the series kind of refuses to address these systemic issues in the wizarding world. Like it sort of does have to do a bit with Rowling's the author of the series is very neoliberal politics, where she has this belief system that functions on the basis of that systems themselves that are established, they don't need to change, but we just need to work within those systems to make them better, like appoint the right people, because we need to I mean, what's the point of because and you sort of do see this idea reflected in you sort of do see this idea reflected within the Harry Potter series, where you see like, oh, what's the point of reforming the system of the 4 houses and in Hogwarts and changing it to where because the current system that is there sort of leads to an in-group out-group mentality. Like what's the point of changing that? Slytherin still exists by the end of the story. There's no point in changing it. No need. It's just perfect the way it is. It's just like there are some bad actors. Like what's the point of freeing all the house elf slaves that work at the kitchens in Hogwarts? And yes, like apparently that happened in the books, which I learned from Sean's video essay, where like again in 4th book, The Goblet of Fire, basically there's this whole thing where there's this whole subplot where Hermione, who is apparently black according to J.K. Rowling, is trying to free the slaves, and in Hogwarts, the elf slaves that are like working as unpaid laborers, and she's basically being treated as a joke, and it's just like, yeah, no, you don't need to reform the system of systemic slavery of the house elves. You just need to like be nicer to the slaves. It's just like it's kind of ridiculous, and it's just like it's sort of stupid how a lot of these things aren't really addressed and actually changed for the better. It's just like because again, it's just like it really doesn't feel like there is this sort of happy ending to the series. It just doesn't really feel like a lot of these things are resolved, even though the story could have been more interesting if they were. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just like that's really a big problem with the series. And Sean goes more into depth with it again, which again I'll link the video that he put out in the description. But anyway, I feel like also Harry Potter himself he's not a bad protagonist. Like he does get more interesting and have stuff going on as the movies go on. But like I feel like he could have been a more interesting character if he was like this outsider who, because Harry Potter is an outsider. He is an person from the outside looking in to this world of Hogwarts that he has not been introduced and conditioned into from the beginning, like a lot of the other characters. And it could have been really cool if Harry Potter like actually after a while, recognized the issues that were systemic within the Wizarding Society and took steps to try to rectify them and change them. And he could have been the symbol for, like, real change and progression within the Wizarding world. But, like, that doesn't really happen. And, like, another main problem with these movies that I've really always had an issue with, which is that, like, that pretty much carries across all of them, is that, like, I'm just going to say it. I don't like Ron. I don't like his character. I never liked Ron. I know a bunch of people say, like, oh, Ron is, like, way better in the books, and they butcher him in the movies, and, like, I don't know. I don't know, though. I haven't read the books, so I only know the movies, and I gotta say, I'm a Ron hater. Like, Hermione deserved better. I don't care about Ron. He's just, like, such a very unlikable character throughout a lot of it, and, like, I don't know, I just don't really find him interesting almost at all. I just don't like Ron. He's not, I don't know, I don't like him. He's just not really interesting. I feel like he's definitely, of the main three friend group, I like Hermione, I like Harry, I don't like Ron. I don't find him interesting. I don't find him likable. I don't like Ron. I don't like Ron. Just gonna say, I don't like Ron. So, yeah, so basically, in regards to Harry Potter, I do definitely have my issues with the series, and again, it's never really been sort of a super nostalgic property for me. I didn't, like, obsess over it like I did with Star Wars when I was a youth. But yeah, I can appreciate what it did. I'm not going to say, like, the series is awful or anything, because it isn't. Because, again, you know, there is some good stuff to come of it. Some of the movies are good. I think it did generally go out on a high note, with the last two movies, like I said before, probably being the best of the bunch. And, like, there's good stuff to be had in it, but I just feel like there's also a lot of wasted potential as well. It's just, like, a lot of issues that sort of keep me down from actually really calling myself a fan of the Harry Potter series. I mean, honestly, let's agree. So, also, this might be a bit of an other a bit of a hot take as well, but like, so can I just say that like, right now, for me, Harry Potter is kind of the poor man's Owl House, if you will, because I mean, honestly, like, the Owl House is kind of low-key better. Can we agree on that? I mean, like, the Owl House, which is obviously, you know, it's a Disney XD show, or not a Disney XD show, it's a Disney show, but, like, that's been going on, and was, I watched the second season about the time that I was watching the Harry Potter movies, and I gotta say, like, Owl House just improves. It sort of does, like, a very similar thing to what the Harry Potter franchise does. Obviously, it takes a lot of inspiration from Harry Potter, and you even have, like, specific references of Harry Potter in the Owl House, but I feel like Owl House actually does legitimately improve a lot on some of the things that Harry Potter tried to do, and is better in a lot of ways. Like, for example, you know, like, for example, one of the things I complained about in Harry Potter was I feel like the lore in the series is very messy and very not well handled, and, like, in the Owl House, I think the lore is handled much better, and you have this actual, literal, dimensional divide between the human realm and the demon realm, where you can understand how, like, people would be skeptical of, like, the demon realm's existence and all that stuff. And, like, the magic is used in more creative ways and more consistent ways than it is in the Harry Potter film, in the Harry Potter franchise. Like, the Owl House actually has, like, LGBTQ representation, whereas Rowling was basically just kind of putting it in after writing the books, like saying, oh, Dumbledore was gay all along, and, like, you know, Hermione was black and whatever. It's like, but Owl House actually does have legitimate actual representation on screen. It's just really, really cool. And, like, I don't know, I just feel like, you know, the Owl House is just, like, sort of more of what I wanted from Harry Potter, but actually, you know, kind of better, honestly. So, yeah, that's basically what I would have to say about that. And don't you worry, a video on the Owl House will be coming soon on Season 2, which I certainly have a lot of things to say about. But yeah, anyway, that has been it. This has been the Aromantic Shipper. And these have been my thoughts about Harry Potter. Please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And as always, remember, just because you can't feel loved doesn't mean you shouldn't want other people to. Bye.
What happened? She caught the rusty smidge.
The what?
Yeah, while you were celebrating your victory, I caught this guy. It means we automatically win. All magic sports are like this.
That just invalidates all our efforts. If catching that thing is so important, why do anything else? There's no reason to watch any of the other players. That's such a stupid rule!